Hello all, welcome to Up The Poshcast, the Poshcast made by the fans for the fans. Grab yourself a drink, put your feet up and listen in. And by the way, there could be some strong language.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Up The Poshcast. Peterborough United were defeated 1-0 by Hollywood FC yesterday. It was a disappointing one, another loss on the board, and that absolute stinker of a run continues. We'll be looking back on that and looking forward to a big trip to Goodison Park in the FA Cup this week. On today's episode, of course, we are recording on Sunday morning. We have Darren McAntony coming on the podcast live tonight. That'll be available to watch for you guys if you haven't seen it live on YouTube, or it will be available on podcast platforms from Wednesday onwards as well. We'll kick off talking about the Wrexham game though in this one. And Ash, what were your thoughts?
I think that there was actually lots of positives to take from yesterday, if I'm being completely honest. It sort of felt like, and I didn't want it just to be sort of, oh, well, the players have got themselves up for what is a big game with a big crowd. Maybe not so much of a big atmosphere, but you know, they sort of managed to really play and show what they can do. Certainly at the back, I think that we were definitely disappointing at top, and some mistakes were made, and obviously there was also a lack of understanding between. Obviously, Brad, he's sort of only come in and play. I think that was pretty confident that was his first start that he's had for us now. And obviously that's something that we need to work on if we're going to be playing this new system. So all in all, I can't really say that I was disappointed. We all expected to go there and get battered, and actually we've managed to hold on for 88 minutes. And at times it did feel like we were holding on, but we also showed what we can do ourselves. And there was some periods where we definitely had Wrexham pinned back. Like I said, it got very, very quiet there, and they were probably expecting the worst, because they've definitely not been on the best run in terms of goal scoring. But ultimately, they're an efficient team. Like I mentioned when I recorded with John and Dell, they know what they're going to do. They know their system. They know their tactics. It's not pretty, but it's effective, isn't it? So at the end of the day, it's a results business. And they've taken the 3 points, and yeah, like Charlie said, sorry, it's another loss on the road, and when will this rot end? I'm not too sure.
I think we are due. I think we are due the away rot to stop at some stage. At least that's what I'm hoping for. Copium, if you will, but it's what I am hoping for, is that we are due some sort of massive away win is what I'm hoping for. I think the big thing to take away from yesterday is, despite we've seen some really lackluster performances this season, some performances that really are abysmal, and I actually think yesterday we played really well. And that's the big thing to take away, was to go away to Wrexham, which was never going to be an easy game. We knew exactly how we were going to play. It was going to be a dogfight. It was like a dogfight when they came to us this season. We dominate possession, but again, as Ashley said, they're extremely efficient, and they got the job done last night. I probably think it was unfair. I don't think they deserved all 3 points. I think a draw would have been a more fair result. I think it was more even than we're giving credit for. But what I did say walking out the ground last night is if we can get a home sort of tactic going, where we can build and play like we did to a degree, like we did last season, where we can use that home advantage and play teams off the park again. Maybe we need some players in, maybe we need to, or if it's not going to work, if we're going to play that system home and away, it's going to be a really boring season. But I don't think we'll be in any trouble. I think that's the positive I could take away from last night was, Wrexham are up there. They're an efficient team. They're going to cause teams in this league a lot of problems. They have done all season, and teams have gone there and have been torn apart. And I don't think we were last night. I think we competed. I think we battled. And I think that's the big takeaway, is that despite all of that, I think it's a really positive performance.
Yeah, I do agree with that, Max. And actually, when you look at it, like, not to say that we've fallen off, we definitely have, but we aren't really a League One powerhouse. We never have been. Wrexham should have never been all the way down where they were. Yes, they're probably back, and they are going to continue on their journey. But I think the one thing that probably annoys me the most is that you've got all these Wrexham fans pretending to be underdogs, and this underdog story. It's not an underdog story. They are a big team in League One now. they should be expecting to beat Peterborough United. When you look at and you compare what we had on the pitch versus what they had on the pitch, and they're bringing ex-Premier League stars off the bench, whether they're 37 years old or not, you just can't compete with that at this level. They are too good. Even somebody like Paul Mullin, when he was scoring goals for Cambridge, he actually dropped backwards rather than moving upwards with them. And they make out as if they've got like this team that's come from the National League, but they all dropped down to the National League because they were paying more wages than teams who are probably in League One. So 2 years on, they now have a League One team. They had a League One team 2 years ago. So all of these records and stuff that they bang on about and back-to-back promotions, it's not that much of a fairy tale story. Like I mentioned, I saw some Stockport fans when we were up there. It's like the Stockport story is definitely a better one than the Wrexham story, that's for sure, because there's not as much of a heavy investment involved in that. So I think, like you say, is that you always like to try and back your team, but I didn't really have that much confidence that we were going to go and get the result. And I think that's rightfully so. I think that they ultimately are a team that will get promotion. And the way that we are at the moment, how can you go to a promotion team and expect to win? I just don't see it. And it's going to be a familiar story when we've got Birmingham coming. We've got to go to Huddersfield. We've got obviously Stockport, and then we've got to go to places like Mansfield and Bolton to come to us again. I think it's just going to be a complete struggle, and there are so many more teams that are better than us this season, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think you've nailed that, Ashley. Wrexham are just so much better than us. They're very well drilled, very efficient. And I do really like Phil Parkinson, because the stuff he's doing there is just really, really good. And we were quite close to him as well. So seeing him on the touchline, seeing the instructions he gives, and how composed he was in certain situations as well. Really interesting to see. I think had Ferguson been on the touchline, I think it might have actually been a different game. But I did think we played much, much better. I think we actually played quite well in terms of dealing with Wrexham. They obviously have their own way of playing. It's not attractive football, or what we perceive as attractive football these days. But our defenders against the two big men up top did a very good job. And like you say, Stephen Fletcher is an ex-Premier League striker. He's got more career goals than any of our team have got career appearances. So it was a very, very good header. And you can't blame Katongo for Fletcher being able to leap up higher than them. So if that's what it took to beat us, then fair play. That just shows that what experience gets you. But yeah, overall, I think the only disappointing thing from our point of view is probably our lack of attack. I don't remember too many chances we had of scoring a goal. I know Chris Clark missed one chance, and there was another he probably should have shot, but he tried to square it instead. But I don't know if that's because we sat quite deep trying to deal with them too much, or whether it was our attack letting us down again. Ricky was poor. That must be about 6 or 7 games in a row now where Ricky's just been completely inefficient. I hate to say it, but I wonder if it could have something to do with his contract being up at the end of the season and the window being open. I don't like to accuse players of not putting in the effort for things like that, but it does seem a bit of a coincidence that he was getting stuck in and flying into tackles for the first third of the season, but has completely calmed down now, and it feels like he's not chasing down balls like he was. He's not getting stuck in. He's not pressing as much as he was. I just wonder if he's trying to avoid getting an injury.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned there that the January transfer window is open, and we got our first little bit of Peterborough United transfer news before kickoff. Very early, actually, before the game, or late, should I say. We were told that Carl Johnston had signed, and he played a full 90. And I think, I sort of want to start there with my analysis of the players' performances, because I thought he was absolutely excellent for us. I gave him my man of the match. I think as a podcast, we've given him our man of the match. He was very energetic. He defended well. He just looked solid. He looked really aggressive into one-on-ones, which I enjoyed. And he didn't, even though he is small, he didn't look like he was getting bullied around at all. But I think the thing I most liked about his performance, and I think the way that he most greatly contributed to the defence, was he was so loud and communicative through the entire game. He didn't stop talking. He was probably different in terms of leadership to what we already have as well. Where Manny Fernandez and Hector Cipriani sort of chastise and shout at the players and go for each other's throats, Carl Johnston was clapping, he was applauding, he was trying to motivate his team rather than trying to pass blame around. And I think it's a bit sad that our only leader that we have right now that I really enjoy is Carl Johnston, considering I've only seen him play once and I didn't know he was going to play for us until about 1:30 yesterday. But I thought he was very good. And he's probably one of the reasons that our defence was very much improved yesterday.
No, I totally agree. And it was sort of like that Duracell bunny type performance where he looked like if you'd have said, "Oh, you got another 90 minutes to play, Carl," it'd have probably kept running up and down that touchline. And there was some sort of like misplaced passes and stuff where, you know, it felt like he got a little bit excited, but he definitely looks like he could be a solid player for us. And will probably be one that I think that we're going to discuss tonight when we speak to DMAC, is that Fergie said that he's been watching him for 2 years. Why have we signed him in the January? Why did we not sign him last summer? Fleetwood got relegated and we brought in Curtis rather than Johnston. Why did we not go for him? So kind of frustrating actually that he's sort of come in, and yes, it could be sort of first performance, like, oh, look at this new shiny thing that we've got. But you know, if he's going to put those performances in every week, then he is definitely going to become a fan favourite, that's for sure. Somebody else that I sort of wanted to mention, who I thought dealt really well with some of the pressure that Wrexham put on, was Bilo yesterday. And I saw some things about people saying that he maybe should have saved the goal, but it's up in the top corner. Like, you can't expect somebody to constantly save things that are going in the top corner. Like, the frustrations that we had with Jed was that he wasn't getting anywhere near things that weren't in the top corner. Bilo was making catches, he was making claims. Yes, his kicking was maybe a little bit erratic and throwing out. He didn't get it distributed at times, but I would always say that a goalkeeper should be trying to do their most to relieve the pressure from set pieces on their defence. And especially when we've been conceding as many as we have, I definitely think he did that. He was really strong with his hands and he made lots of really, really good catches. So for me, it was another solid Villa Capic performance. And I'm not sort of sure where we go in the transfer window. Obviously, Blackmore was on the bench again yesterday. I'm not sure whether that's because Blackmore is keeping Steer out or not, but I wouldn't be surprised if Steer's another one that we sort of see potentially heading out the door this January to make space for some players elsewhere on the pitch, because it seems like Fergie's got the confidence back in Bilo and he's happy with Blackmore being a number 2. So, you know, maybe that's the option that we're going to go with for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and we do need to ship players off. I think that's a big thing, is that the wage bill is probably quite high. With Joel Randall leaving, or rumoured to leave, it's pretty much confirmed, I would presume, unless it falls through with the club that's had the bid accepted. I think we're going to see, it was a club record wage bill, I think, a club record wage. So that's going to be off our books. And, you know, last season we were complaining about having Johnson Clark-Harris on the bench. I'm pretty sure Joel Randall is on more money than he was. So if he's not going to play, I think we're doing the right thing in shipping him off. I think it's best for all parties to move on. And this is going to be huge, as these players sort of going out that not necessarily dead wood, but are players that haven't worked, like Jack Sparks, who hasn't worked this season, and bring some new ones in. And Carl Johnston is an excellent example of a brilliant signing. He's exactly what we needed. He's energetic. He can defend, he can attack. He's exactly what we wanted. And to come in and put in a performance like that when he has, I don't even think he's really undergone a training session. He probably has done 1 or 2, but he hasn't been coached by Fergie for an extended period of time. So he's come in with sort of a lack of tactical awareness, and he's put in a performance against a side like Wrexham that we've all acknowledged. I think that's the big thing, is that if you're going to play with some passion, and if you're going to play for the badge and get stuck in a bit, that's exactly what we need. And I feel like that's what our defence has been lacking this season. That energy to just sort of like, just do things, get stuck in, play with aggression, defend with fight, you know, that sort of thing. We haven't had this season at all. I think that's been a big downfall for us, and especially when you look at our defensive record. I mean, away fans have come to our ground and whatever, and has just said sort of how horrible our defence looks. And I think last night prove that our defence isn't that horrible if we actually play like we want to defend. And I feel that's what we've been missing this season is some passion and some fight and with the players going out, as Ashley said, and hopefully some players coming in. We definitely need an experienced centre back, and we just need to replace anyone that leaves. So I think we need to sign an attacker for Joel Randall leaving. If Ricky or Cipriano were to go, I think we need to sign another midfielder and another striker, and we probably need to sign another. Probably a right wing back, I think, is the other position that I'd sign. I know Keane Hayes is doing a good job there, but defensively, if we're talking about our defence being rubbish, I think we could probably sign a right wing back with more defensive capabilities. So yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting January. But as Ashley said, the deadwood or the players that aren't going to play need to go so that we can build on that.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting window because right now I don't know if Fergie has full confidence in the 4-2-3-1 or 3-3-3, whatever you want to call it, system that he's played since he's come back to the club. Obviously, we've seen recently he's played 3 at the back or 5 at the back, however you want to look at it. I think depending on which one he wants to go with between now and the end of the season will determine what we do in the window. We have 4 centre-backs if you include Katongo within that. And if we sign another one and play 4 at the back, you're essentially going to have at least 1 centre-back doing nothing. He's got the option of sending Katongo back, which I think would be a bit wrong, given his technical ability. And he's got the option of putting Nevitt out on loan. But I think given perhaps Odo's been a bit disappointing, Motherseal's not a natural winger, Poku can play in the 10. It wouldn't surprise me if he sticks with this 3 at the back system, which means, yeah, his wing backs he'll have to have a look at. We know that Jack Sparks is probably going to be leaving the club this window. Where at Carl Johnson, I don't think he's probably more suited as a defensive right back. What we saw yesterday at Wrexham was sort of an asymmetrical back line where Carl Johnson stayed back in possession and Keane Hayes went right up the pitch. So whether or not we just stick with that and hope that the lack of defensive ability in Keane Hayes is just something that we can balance out with how good he is in attack on that left-hand side. I perhaps we'll sign a left wing back to replace him that's probably better suited for both attack and defence. But then obviously you're losing him from the lineup. So it's definitely interesting to see what he does. We know he wants an experienced centre back in, and I think that's needed. I'd say that's probably our priority right now, and then we'll just see what follows from that.
I think I'd be really disappointed if we stayed with the 5. I think that we need to get back to the 4 as quickly as possible, and play Carl Johnston, play an experienced centre back, hopefully, and then rotate between Wallin and Manny. Like you say, I'm really struggling to find a place for Katongo, which is a concern. But whether he wants to sort of play second fiddle to Johnston or not is a different question. And then whether he comes in for rotation options as well. One thing that I would like to say as well, actually, is that obviously Charlie mentioned about Johnston being the only leader on the pitch. I would also like to give some credit to Cipriano yesterday, because there were some times where we had defenders arguing with each other. Bilo was arguing with Manny and Manny was arguing with Katongo, and just sort of bickering about not knowing what to do from like a throw-in and stuff, which in itself is relatively embarrassing. Not knowing who's meant to take a throw-in is pretty tragic. But Cipriano was definitely stepping in those situations, especially when they were passing it around in their triangles, and was just taking the blame, which is definitely something that I would expect of the club captain, is that even if you're not wrong and not in the wrong, actually taking the blame and just stopping players bickering with each other on the pitch. I do think that Cipriano and Archie Collins put in solid performances yesterday, and I think that they deserved the ratings that they got from us, and ultimately to be applauded for their actions. Like I said, we've gone 86 minutes without conceding a goal yesterday, which, you know, it's a small win, even if we left with nothing.
Yeah, leadership on the pitch is definitely something we've lacked this season, and it is good to see Hector come in and take on that captain role and see it visibly on the pitch. But I mean, I was quite harsh on him during the game yesterday. I thought perhaps he wasn't organising as well as he could, but actually now I've slept on it. I think it's more the players perhaps not taking in their instructions properly. I know you mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, Ashley, about set pieces. How do they still not know what they're doing? How come they're looking for their captain to tell them where to go? Because if you're a captain on a pitch and you're having to tell 10 other players where to be for set pieces, like that's not Kyprianu's role. You shouldn't have to be looking around and making sure everyone's exactly where they should be. They should just be doing that naturally. And yeah, I felt really embarrassed when Katongo was taking the throw-ins at the beginning of the match, and they're all having a go at him for taking too long. And he's going, well, hang on a minute, I'm not even the throw-in taker. I don't know what the tactics are. And it's just, how are we this far into the season and we don't know what we're doing from set pieces? That said, I think the corners, I've seen an improvement on that. But last week, there was a moment where everyone was arguing with each other from a corner. Fergie was arguing with the goalkeeping coach, who's clearly in charge of these corner routines, and it was Bilo that was having to sort it out. So there's work to be done, but it is definitely positive to see Hector playing that leadership role. I'm not sure whether he has a chance of leaving in January or not. I think I'm probably on the fence a little bit of whether we should sell him or not.
Yeah, I think all the things you mentioned there, Lodz, are just sort of they're consequences of changing system just randomly in the middle of the season and throwing away all the work you've done in pre-season and all the training. And I mean, when you look at Hector and Archie, they knew that 4-2-3-1 like the back of their own hands. If Hector was told to organise a team in the 4-2-3-1 shape, he would have been absolutely able to do it. But he's not played this system like the rest of them haven't, and he's being told as quite a young player still that he has to organise the team out on the pitch. They all look to him when something goes wrong, and it's a big responsibility for him, and I think it is having negative impact on his performances. Like you saw last season, at the beginning of last season, when Efron Mason Clark was given the captaincy, and that responsibility sort of it made his performances weaker because he was having to think about too many things on the football pitch. And I think that might be the same thing that's happening to Hector right now, where he's not having that same sort of quality and that same creativity within games because he's having to think not only what am I going to do next and what's my next move, but also what's Manny's next move and where does Oscar Wallen need to be? And is there a big gap in our defence that one of our defenders has just gone roaming that I need to plug? And because he doesn't have trust in the players around him, ultimately that is impacting his performances, and I assume it's also impacting Archie Collins's performances as well, because those two are trying to control games by doing everyone's job. And I mean, I am very quickly joining Lodz's camp in terms of Archie Collins, in terms of his it's so frustrating when he has to play centre back for us. Like there were so many times yesterday where he was literally the only person back anywhere near the halfway line, and he was having to manage the game entirely on his own. It's like, why would he want to play for us right now? It's horrific for him. He's having to cover absolute mileage every game just to do the bare minimum. He's not being able to massively impact games because he's having to put out fires left, right, and centre. And so even though yesterday was a better defensive performance, we had to sacrifice all of our quality, all of our offensive quality, all of our ability to move the ball quickly, all of our ability to get some speed into the game and take throw-ins quickly and take corners quickly and put pressure on Wrexham. We had to sacrifice all of that because we kept stopping and we kept having to reorganise and we kept having players out of position, and it wasn't the shape that flowed. And it's frustrating, and I do think the management staff have to take some responsibility for that, because I don't understand, unless we have a squad of absolute thickos, I don't understand how at this point in the season we can't understand where you need to be from like a corner and a throw in. It's ridiculous.
No, and Charlie, I completely agree. And I've mentioned that before, is that do the coaching staff have to take some responsibility? And I think it's got to the point in the season where they probably do. And it's a big thing. Yesterday, there was points in the game, despite it being a far better performance, where we just looked completely disorganised. And that's not been the first time. This has been a rhythm throughout the season. Ferguson has alluded to the fact that his players don't listen to him. I'm in a complete agreement with Charlie, however, is that if you've got a crop of players that are in League One, but it's not only National League or a step below that, we're in League One. To have a crop of players that can't listen or can't comprehend is terrifying, and we will be in big trouble if that's the case. I don't really know how you sort of, if you haven't been able to manage that, or the players haven't been able to listen from the summer, I don't know how you're going to manage that into the team now, which is the big scary thing. And I think that comes down to experience. And this is the big thing, and sort of the theme that we've got for the January transfer window is just give me someone who's like 28, 29 has played in the league for a bit. It's all we sort of need is that sort of level of experience where they're going to be an old head. They've been under management, and even if we're signing someone on a little fee to just be sort of like a cheerleader in the dressing room, or that's going to come on the pitch and do some work, I'd be happy with that. And yeah, we need some leaders on the pitch, and I've got no doubt that we'll get that. But if there's like someone going on a free that could come in and sort of like get this squad learning and understanding and have some experience, last season we had a lot of it in the dressing room. Johnson Clark-Harris didn't really feature, but his experience probably helped this young team and young squad, and he was able to sort of not maybe necessarily coach, but help players when they were struggling, and we saw that a lot last season. So I think maybe even someone like Critchlow coming back is going to be massive for us in terms of experience. Maybe he won't play, maybe he will play, who knows? But I think that experience that he's got, that he's probably one of the older heads in the camp, in the group, and that's the big thing is these experience levels need to be upped. And coming back to DMAC, on the spaces that people asked in the season that we lost to Sheffield Wednesday, people asked, is flash selling all our experiences to go young and hungry? Is that the way to go? And everyone was kind of proved wrong last season, but this is what everybody thought that season would be, where the lack of experience is so clear. And I think everybody's recognised that now. So it's how we act in the January transfer window. But I think Darren Ferguson and his coaching staff need to set a firework up the players' arses a bit and say, look, you guys need to get moving, and you have to listen and understand these tactics, because if you don't, there's definitely a wholehearted chance that we go down.
The thing with experience is that I actually think that we don't need the age. It doesn't need to be an age profile. I think it just needs to be game time and understanding. And like, I'm pretty sure that Carl Johnson's 22, but he's got like 100 appearances in what would essentially be League One if he's only played at Fleetwood, plus however many games he's played this season. And when I think back to Burton away last season, there was one clip that stuck with me, which was Clark-Harris walking in with Malik Motherseal, where he walked in and he basically nudged him, and Clark-Harris said, "Ask me if I've scored here," and he did. And then they had some banter, and I think that's probably what's missing is like a little bit of like just low level banter where somebody's just going to like completely absorb all of that pressure and be happy to take the shots from supporters ultimately. And Clark-Harris did that very well. If you think back to Lincoln, he had somebody berating him, and he sort of gave it back, and then we've always seen him celebrate in front of fans and enjoy it, when actually I think that's probably where we've come a little bit unstuck, is that actually fans don't really have somebody to blame this season. So we've started blaming players that maybe just aren't performing at sort of like 60-70%. They're only performing at 50%, which is where somebody like Malik Motherseal comes in, is that he is the target because he makes himself so readily available, which has had a negative impact on his performances. When I think about, obviously he got dropped yesterday. Brad came in. I don't think that Brad was too strong, if I'm being totally honest with you. I liked that he offered something different, but he's a tall striker, and if you're going to call him a target man as such, Ricky was the one challenging for headers from what I saw from most of the game. Now, why is our quick striker challenging for headers for then Brad, he's not slow, but he's not rapid like Ricky is? Why are they not like roles reversed and things like that? And I think that my frustration yesterday came from the fact that we were camped back in our own half and we were pumping the ball forwards. Ricky was sort of like winning like a semi flick on as such sometimes. and then their defenders and centre backs were picking the ball up on the halfway line and then just basically recycling it and moving it back in. I think that I really don't like the 5 at the back. I think that it just completely nullifies any threat that we have going forwards, and that it takes 15 minutes to sort of move a foot up the pitch, move a foot up the pitch, move a yard up the pitch, and then you eventually get there, and then nothing comes of it, because that's sort of where we are at the moment. Con Clark, crikey, we've called him a maverick, but what maverick doesn't pull the trigger yesterday when they get themselves into the 18-yard box? I'd have rather him fired it 30 yards wide, but at least take on the shot. Like we've criticised Joel Randall enough for not shooting, and then Con Clark pulls that. Absolutely crazy. That was so disappointing. Especially when it was a period where we were under the cosh, we'd broken away, and then he just ultimately fucked it. Really disappointing that he's not taking a shot, because I don't think that their keeper's all that, if I'm being completely honest. When we haven't tested him yesterday, again, I said it, I'm pretty sure I said it after the last time when they played us at London Road. We've not tested their goalkeeper, and yes, he's an academy product, and I'm sure that he'll end up becoming fantastic. But as we've seen with Bilo, if you test young goalkeepers and you put pressure on young goalkeepers, they make mistakes. So that's another massive frustration from yesterday. And Con Clark sort of epitomises that when he's not taking a shot when he's inside the 18-yard box.
And while I do agree, Ash, that he definitely should have shot there, and I couldn't believe it in the stands that he hadn't. I think I'll come on and defend my rating, because I've given him the highest rating out of all the players, and I know I'm going to get some stick for it. Look, he may have squandered 2 great chances for us to win the game, and I'm not going to deny that at all. But he definitely is and has this sort of like maverick mentality, where if he gets the ball, every time he touched it, it seemed there was going to be something special that was going to happen. He beat a man in front of him constantly. He played good passes constantly. And while it might not have been Joel Randall's level of sort of setting counterattacks off, this clearly wasn't what we were trying to do yesterday. And I think he was much better. And in fact, probably was better than Joel Randall would have been last night. My only problem is that he didn't shoot. But I think if you look at the players on the pitch, there's been so many that haven't. It's not just a him thing. I think it's clearly a confidence problem. And I think without that run of games, it's definitely a confidence problem. So I think it's probably a little bit harsh to say that, you know, he is in a maverick mentality and this sort of, he definitely should have shot. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think this whole squad's got a confidence problem. And he was the only player last night that seemed to be playing with a little bit of confidence throughout the pitch. Maybe not in front of goal, but I think that's going to come. We just need to score some goals. And that's the big thing, is that once 1 goes in or 2 goes in and we're scoring, you know, we saw it at Burton. It didn't look like we'd score, and then we did. And then for the rest of the game, we completely dominated. And it's that sort of, we just got to score 1. And if we've got to score in the first 5 minutes and do everything we can to do it, then we should. I think we're giving teams too much respect. I saw it again, Wrexham. The first 15, they were all over us. Looked like we were going to get absolutely battered. And then we built back into the game. And that's worked when it's been at home and when they've flown out the traps. When you're going away, you can't let a home side fly out the traps like that and have no response. We probably got lucky not to concede very early on yesterday. And we saw the same at Burton. You know, they flew out the traps and they got 2. So we see that that's going to happen. And we probably need to coach some sort of countermeasure for that. We should probably go toe-to-toe with teams when we're going away in the first 15. We've got to fly out the traps as well a bit, because if we set off and let players sort of do what they've done all season, and especially Wrexham, who are well drilled, I was surprised that we hadn't conceded in the first 15 minutes. So I think there's a lot of confidence problems in this team. And I think Chris Con Clark, is a struggler of that. But I think it'll all come good, whether it's, you know, towards the end of this season when we desperately need it to drag ourselves out of a dogfight, or whether it's through pre-season and into next.
Yeah, I agree with you on all of that, Max, and I think we're moving on to our next topic, which is the Everton game. I think, we're going to need to be very at it, aren't we, Ashley? I mean, we're going to Goodison Park on Thursday night. If we're showing too much respect to Wrexham up against Premier League Everton, are you concerned?
Do you know what? I don't know. I don't know whether I'm going to go in this with blind confidence or not. Everton have not won, or have won once in 2.5 months. Now, I'm sure that they'll be looking at lowly Peterborough United and thinking, right, this is a perfect time to absolutely pump someone and get a little bit of confidence back into the team. But they've gone away yesterday. They've lost 1-0 to Bournemouth, I think it was. Is there probably a better time to be playing a Premier League team and probably a weaker Premier League team? The only one that probably would be better would be a team like Southampton. I'm not going to say that we're going to go there and we're going to find it easy. Don't get me wrong. But like Max said, if we can get an early goal, then that crowd's going to rot. From what we discussed yesterday, I think that they've sold everything out. So there'll be 3,000 Posh fans in that corner ready to cheer their team home. And what are we talking? Probably 30,000 Evertonians. If we can get an early goal, anything can happen in the FA Cup, can't it? And I think that it's about time that we probably were part of a successful upset, for sure. So I'm not going to say that we're going to go there and we're going to absolutely dick them, but I'd like to take a little bit of confidence that if we can get the tactics right and we can start quickly, that there's a small chance that we can get a positive result.
Yeah, there's definitely two ways of looking at this, isn't there? There's Everton are in really bad form and can use us to turn the form around. Or you could say that they probably want to maybe lose the game to focus on the league to make sure they're not going to get relegated. But then you could also say the same for us. Are we happy to lose to Everton knowing that they're the bigger team and there's no expectations just so we could get out of the cup and focus on the league? Or do we use this as a springboard? Because this will give the players and the fans much more confidence going into the second half of the season if we can get a good result. I think all I'm looking for is perhaps a good performance, similar to how we played against Wrexham, where, you know, all the players showed some fight. If we did that against the Premier League side in Everton, I think most fans will come away with that quite pleased, regardless of the result. There is no expectation on us to win. I can imagine once Goodison Park gets going, their fans can get right behind their team. But yeah, at the same time, if we do go 1-0 up, I think the game will be there for the taking. And the players that I reckon the players are all excited to play at Goodison Park as well. And it's been a rough Christmas. It's been tiring for them. It's been tiring for the fans. It's been game after game after game. We've played like 10 games in the last month or whatever it is. It feels like this is the end of that busy period. And if we can come out with a win against Everton at Goodison Park, I think that would probably be more of a motivator going into the second half of the season than it would us not having to worry about the FA Cup.
Yeah, and I completely agree. And this is the big thing. I also think, alluding to what Lodz said earlier, and no accusations being thrown, but if there is any players sort of holding up for a move or wanting a move and avoiding injury, there's no bigger stage really, is there, that you're going to get this season to sort of show what you're capable of and show what you're worth. And I think we do have a good crop of championship level players in attack, and especially, you know, Kipriano and especially Archie Collins. I think his ceiling is, I don't actually know what his ceiling is, but he's a really, really good player and he could go all the way. So I think obviously we're Peterborough United and there's no expectation to win. And let's not forget that we are probably in the worst run of form that I've seen in a very long time. It's been a really tough period for us. And as Lodz said, it feels like they're coming to an end of a busy period. If we can nick a result against Everton, and imagine the confidence, you know, talking about the confidence and talking about the end, and sort of like looking forward to the future of this season. What a better way to start that off than you know, winning against Everton and then straight into Walsall on Tuesday in the Bristol Street Motors Trophy quarterfinals, or is it semi-finals? Either one. We're in the latter stages now, so. I think it's going to be a good game, sold out crowd, sold out away end. We're going to be behind them all the way through. And as Lodz has said, if they're going to show some fight and some passion like they did, I will celebrate every tackle like I did against Wrexham. And hopefully there might be are winning it for us, but with no expectation to win. And look, if we go there and we get pumped 5-0, I'm more worried about the performance. And as long as we perform and we show up and we fight to the end, then I'm going to be happy, I think, whatever the outcome is.
No, I do agree with that, Max. I think that realistically setting your expectations low is probably the right thing to do. And like you say, if we do lose 5-0, then so be it. What can you do when you come up against a Premier League team? But what would be nice to see is, like you say, is just a little bit of energy and a little bit of passion, because I'd like to say with relative confidence that a win away at Everton would probably top trump many results that we've had sort of in the past 3 or 4 years, that's for sure, and would be one that people will remember for a hell of a long time. If we were to win, and especially with there being no replays, like there's no point playing for a draw here. Let's just go all out to try and win it inside 90 minutes. Now that is the magic of the FA Cup. People say that it's gone, but I do sort of understand it. And yeah, like you say, it's been a long Christmas for the Posh players. We've had lots of away games. This is the third one now this year already, with no games at home. So it would be a nice way just to round it off, just with a good performance. Win or lose, I'm sure that everybody that's still there at the final whistle will definitely applaud the players over for putting in a valiant effort. Hopefully, that is, of course.
Yeah, I think that is the main thing about this game, is that we just, if any of the players down tools, I think it could get toxic. But if we lose, we lose. Personally, I'd quite like to see us if we're going to sign new defenders, get them in and just start them on Thursday. Because if we want to test our defenders and start a rapport of a back four, throwing them into a game that is essentially, I mean, it's not a friendly, it's obviously a competitive game, but it's a free hit essentially. Throwing them into a game like that where they're going to have to do a lot of defending against Premier League quality players would probably be the best way to do it. I mean, it's going to be a massive test. You think about when Leeds came to us last season, how much better they looked than us. And that was our, last season's super team, and they were a championship side. It's going to be so tough. And if Everton show up and Everton play well, we aren't going to win. Like there's no way. But at the same time, it would be very Peterborough United to put in an absolute stinker of a festive period and then give us a nice little present to round it off. I mean, I think the fans deserve something like that, especially people that, I was lucky to be able to go to, Stockport, both the home games, obviously Burton, who else we played? Wrexham. There's been some proper long hauls in there, and there are people that I've seen at every single one of those, and they all looked very tired yesterday. And I think they deserve some reward for following the team, because it has been a very difficult period for Posh fans. It's been negative, it's been toxic, it's been cold outside, it's been long. And yeah, I think 3 points would not 3 points, a win. Obviously, you can't get 3 points. We're in the cup. My brain is fried. A win would be very much deserved. And so let's see if any of us think we can actually get a win. Let's move on to our score predictions. And I'll throw it to you, Ash, first. Do you reckon we're going to pick up 3 points at Goodison Park?
No, I don't think we're going to predict a 3-pointer, but I'm going to predict Posh to win 2-1. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to go with a Manny Fernandez goal. And just hope for the best. I've got nothing. I can't say that with any confidence. Just a nice performance would be good. That would be my prediction, is that they battle for the, let's say, 100 minutes of football that we're more than likely to play on Thursday night. Yeah,
I am going to go for, I'll be optimistic and I'll go 2-2, and then we'll win on pens is what I'll go for. I reckon they'll go 2-0 up in the first half, and then we'll claw it back. 87th minute consolation goal, and then 90+1 in front of the away end. Oscar Wallen overhead kick. That's my prediction. And then obviously we go see out extra time, and then we win on penalties, and Bilo scores the winning pen.
I was going to go 2-1 to Everton, but Ashley's stolen that. I'll go for 3-1. And I think our goal will either be from a set piece, like Ashley said, or it'll be a last-minute consolation goal. I think we might see 10 minutes of Gustav at the end, and I think he might be the one that gets it.
I'm known as the optimistic one, and I was going to predict a 4-0 loss. But again, it's all about the performance. And actually, after hearing some positive predictions, I'm going to go with a 1-0 Posh win and our first clean sheet in a very long time. And and as much as I probably don't believe that prediction, and I'm coping so hard, I think we probably will get battered. I think it's important that we stay optimistic regardless of the game. And when we get battered, I will be here after sort of giving 2 predictions quietly.
Yeah. I like those predictions. I don't think any of them sound disastrous. They sound quite good, actually. Looks like Thursday is going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, if you're a Posh fan and you're heading up to Goodison Park, fair play, and let's hope the team give you something to be proud of. And I think that's the end. Unless we have any other business, I think that is the end of this episode. Of course, we will have been live with Darren McAntony. I mentioned it at the start. I'll mention it at the end before this episode goes out. So go and watch that back on YouTube. And then, yeah, we will be releasing it. Depending on how long it will be in either 1 or 2 parts later in the week. And so you'll be able to listen if you don't have access to YouTube for any reason. So yeah, thank you guys very much for listening. Do all the social media stuff. Follow us. Share the podcast if you enjoy it. It's 2025. It's a new year. And let's hope that it's a good year for Posh. And that we kick it off with a big win, kick off our year properly with a good win at Everton on Thursday night. Up the Poshcast.
Up the Poshcast.
Up the Poshcast.
Thank you all for listening. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Up The Poshcast. Let us know your feedback. Give us any ideas for topics you would like to discuss or any questions you'd like us to answer. Up The Poshcast.
Don't you think it would be really nice if we saw Tyler Young for 3 minutes on Thursday night?